1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out there in Mandolin Land, Mike Heading here, coming today with one of my favorite old songs. We're going to do an intermediate version of Wildwood Flower in the key of C. This is a great song to play as a duet with a guitar player or a violin player. It's just a beautiful old melody. I think it sounds really great in a small ensemble. I taught a beginner lesson of this in the past that taught the simple melody down the neck a little further. And for this lesson, the intermediate level one, we're going to bring it up another octave, work on playing it out of a closed position, add more harmonies, and we're really going to focus on our phrasing for this song. So a lot of people don't think about phrasing enough, but we're going to take that melody and subtly shift it in the measure to create interesting variations. So what normally you might want to hear on a downbeat, we might play on an upbeat. Again, we're going to create that excitement by fiddling with that melody, just very slightly, phrasing it in a more interesting way. It's a very powerful tool to create a variation on a melody without having to completely change the pitches and just go into licks. I'll break down both the solos I just played at the beginning, note for note, show you all the left-hand fingerings, all the pick direction needed to play the song, and then for the backup section, we'll get into some more advanced backup, throwing in little pentatonic fills. I'll show you this cool Tony Rice chord substitution you can do for the B part. We'll break that down as well. All right, here's the intermediate version of Wildwood Flower in the key of C. All right, let's start breaking down this first solo to Wildwood Flower in the key of C. Remember, we're kind of doing an intermediate version for this lesson. If you're not familiar with this song, I'd suggest checking out the beginner lesson first, where I break down the melody in very simple detail. And this lesson, we're going to work on spicing up that melody, phrasing it in a more interesting way, and adding some double stops. So definitely check out the beginner lesson first so you've got the basic melody down. Let's jump into this solo. Okay, so real quick, let's just get the position that we're working out of. We're going to be in what's called second position, if you're familiar with classical violin, which basically just means our first finger is going to move up and take the place where our middle second finger would normally play. So we're going to start with our index finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. And then we've got our middle finger 5th fret on the A, ring finger 7th fret, and then pinky 8th fret. So 3, 5, 7, 8. Those are the frets. And then we just do that same notes on the E string. So it's just the classic C major scale out of a closed position, so no open strings. And you can also go down to the 7th fret on the D string, and then 5th fret. Just some other notes we're going to use. So that's the shape we're working out of. Remember, practice not lifting all your fingers up if you don't need to. That's just a classic closed position major scale. So that's the shape we're going to be working out of. So let me play the first 6 measures. That'll be kind of the opening melody line. Here we go. Do that a few times. Do it really slow, and then I'll do it a little faster. One time a little faster. So we're basically just going to run up the notes starting on this 5th fret of the D string on beat 2 of measure 1. It's a pickup, so measure 1's the pickup to the solo. The solo actually starts in measure 2. We're just going to run up the notes. We want to get up to this high 3rd fret on the E string. That's going to be our starting melody note. So we're just starting lower and running up. So we're actually starting an octave lower on the 5th fret of the D string. We're going to play 5-7 on the D, and then 3rd fret on the A, 5th fret, 7th fret, 8th fret, and then up to the high 3rd fret. So we're just really kind of running up those notes that we just went over. I'm using all down up picking there, so you could count beat 1. 1. Or if you want to loop it, you can make this your beat 1 and then just loop it. Make sure you're keeping all your fingers straight on so you're not muting those strings. That's good practice. You can just practice running up and down those notes and making sure they're all clean. For me, the trickiest one is the pinky on the 8th fret. Getting all those notes to be clean is really good practice. So that's the opening shape we're going to work out of. One more time. 1. And then here's the opening melody line, 3rd fret. And then bounce from the 3rd fret to the 7th fret on the A with a down up. And then 3rd fret again, 5th fret on the high E, and then 8th fret. So you have, this is measure 2. So I'm going down, down, up, down with my pick. The pick direction is going to be really important on this lesson, so check out the pick direction below the tab. The staple looking symbols are the downstrokes, the V looking symbols are the upstrokes. Really important, especially when we get into the variations with the phrasing. The pick direction is really going to help you play the timing. So measure 2 again, we have, I'm basically just keeping my first finger anchored there. And then a little move, here's measure 3. Take your pinky off, keep your first finger down, put your middle finger down on the 5th fret of the A string, and do a 5-7 hammer on while picking. And I'm doing down, up with my pick. And then we're going to do a little double stop. Put your pinky on the 8th fret of the A string, your middle finger on the 5th fret of the E string, and you're going to play those 2 notes. And then back to 7 and 3, and then back down to 5 and 3. So we're just working these shapes. This is like a C, this is an F double stop, and then C and G. So we're kind of just implying that little phrase. The melody actually, we'll break down the very simple melody in just a second, but I'm just showing you how we're getting that harmony there. And then you land here, this is measure 4, and then another 5-7 hammer on, and then 3rd fret. So you have your index finger is really the key there. It's the anchor that holds it all together. Okay, so the very simple melody is right, so we'll see how we're kind of implying that with picking and hammer-ons. We're going hammer on here to imply the melody, and then we're harmonizing here, and then harmonizing hammer on to imply the melody, and then a little lick. So you land here on the 3rd fret, put your pinky up on the 8th fret of the high E, which is octaves, and play that note, and then a little run. So you have, so the run is 5, 3, open, 5th fret on the A string with an up, and then back. I'm just looping measure 5. That's good pinky strengthening practice. So that's just like a little fill. And then we land in measure 6. We actually do the same pickup to pick it back up. So that's the first opening melody line. Let's play that part. Here we go. You can loop it, loop it. So the only little stylistic thing I didn't mention there is in measure 3, I like to cut those double stops short. That helps the melody kind of pop out. So I take off the pressure pretty quick. I just find that kind of helps it pop out a little bit more rather than letting those ring out so much. That's just my personal preference, but that's what I'd recommend there. And then we're into measure 7. We're going to play the same melody line, but we're going to phrase it in an interesting rhythmic way. So instead of playing on the downbeat, which your ear expects, we're going to play on the upbeat. So really important to follow the pick direction here. So we go into measure 7. Let's take it from measure 6, actually. So we pick it up. We're going to play the same melody, except we're going to syncopate it. So beat 1 is going to be a rest, and then you're going to play the 3rd fret on the high E with an upstroke. Beat 2 is going to be a rest. We're going to play the 7th fret on the A string with another upstroke on the and of beat 2. And then we're going to play down, up, 3, 5. And then instead of playing the last 8th fret on a down beat, we'll play it on an up. So the count is 1 and 3 and. So it's tricky counting. So it's and 3 and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. So we're going up, up, down, up, up. So tricky picking there. But what's cool about that is we're implying the melody in an interesting way that your ear doesn't expect it. So it's kind of exciting, right? So I'll play it a little faster. I think it'll make more sense. Follow the pick direction. That's naturally going to help you play the timing. So it's 1 and 3 and. And if you didn't like that, you could also just go back up and play measure 2. That's completely fine as well. But it's really good practice to try and phrase a simple melody in a more complex way. It makes it a lot harder, but it's really interesting. So again, let's do 6 and 7 together. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So a lot of ands. That's really tricky, and that's good practice. So we have. And then that same lick in measure 3, or very similar, 3-5 hammer on. And we just implied that melody slightly different. Instead of going 1 and 2 and 3, 4, which is right on the downbeat, 3, 4. Now we're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So we're grabbing that double stop on an upstroke. And then measure 9, another pause to phrase it in an interesting way. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then a little lick. So same melody, but we're just really implying it more on the upstroke. So we have. So measure 10 is 3rd fret on the A, open high E, and then 8th fret on an upstroke, and then that run. So see how we're just playing with that downbeat versus upbeat thing? Comparing measures 1 through 5 to 6 through 10 would be really a good practice on phrasing that simple melody in a more interesting way, right? So we have.